I said no. Animals belong in cargo, not first class. Ma'am, I showed you his certification. I don't care what fake papers you printed. You think you can just walk onto my plane with some pet and... He's not a pet. He's a certified service dog. Oh, please. Everyone says that nowadays. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I know a scam when I see one. I should have known right then. I should have seen it coming. The way her voice cut through the cabin. The way every passenger turned to stare. The way my hands started shaking before Ranger even had a chance to help me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. To a morning that felt like any other. A morning where I had no idea my entire life was about to change on a 45-minute flight. My name is Jake Harrison. I'm 28 years old. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Denver with furniture from IKEA and a gaming setup I built myself. And every morning, I wake up to the same routine. Coffee. Deep breath. Check my phone. That morning, the text from my dad was the same as always. Short. Distant. Professional. Safe flight. Call when you land. 5 words. That's what our relationship had become. 5 words, and a lifetime of things we didn't say. I looked over at Ranger. My golden retriever. My service dog. My lifeline. Just you and me today, buddy, I told him, watching as he stretched in the sunbeam coming through my apartment window. Boston, then home. Ranger looked at me with those eyes. The ones that always seemed to know. The ones that could sense when my hands were about to start shaking. When my breathing was about to get shallow. When the walls were about to close in. I grabbed his vest from the hook by the door. The official one. The one with all the patches and certifications clearly visible. I'd learned early on that visibility mattered. That being prepared mattered. That having every single piece of documentation mattered. Certification from the training facility. Medical letter from my doctor. Vaccination records from the vet. All of it laminated. All of it organized. All of it ready. Because I'd done this before. Flown with Ranger dozens of times. And while most experiences were smooth, there were always those moments. Those questions. Those looks. I grabbed my phone and ordered an Uber. The driver, who picked us up, was kind. Asked about Ranger, complimented his training, told me about his own dog back home. Normal. Pleasant. Easy. That's what I thought this whole day would be. Normal. Pleasant. Easy. I had no idea. The airport was busy that morning. Denver International on a Tuesday. Business travelers rushing to make connections. Families dragging oversized luggage. The usual chaos. I approached the check-in counter with Ranger walking perfectly at my side. The agent looked up and smiled immediately. Good morning. Oh, what a beautiful dog. Thank you, I said, sliding my ID and confirmation number across the counter. His name is Ranger. He's my service dog. Wonderful, she said, typing into her computer. Let me just pull up your reservation. Harrison, Jake. First class to Boston. And I see here we have a note about your service animal. All approved and ready to go. She printed my boarding pass, attached the baggage tag to my carry-on, and handed everything back with that same genuine smile. You're all set, Mr. Harrison. Have a great flight. See? Normal. Pleasant. Easy. Security was the same. The TSA agent saw Ranger's vest, asked me to remove it for screening, was professional and efficient. Waved us through without issue. I walked through the terminal with Ranger, and I noticed what I always noticed. The stares. But these were the good kind. The curious kind. Children pointing and waving. Parents explaining what a service dog does. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, look. A working doggy. Her mother smiled at me apologetically, but I smiled back. He's very good at his job, I told the little girl. She beamed. I grabbed coffee at Starbucks. Ranger waited patiently outside, sitting perfectly still, exactly like he'd been trained. A woman walked by and paused. Your dog is so well trained. What's his name? Ranger, I said. He's my co-pilot. She laughed. Everything was good. Everything was fine. I texted my friend Trevor. Boarding in 20. See you tonight. He texted back immediately. You better not bail on poker night again, Harrison. I smiled. Life felt normal. Life felt manageable. I had Ranger. I had my routine. I had this under control. Or so I thought. Boarding began, and I made my way to the gate. The agent scanned my ticket, glanced at Ranger, and didn't even pause. Have a wonderful flight, Mr. Harrison. First class boarding. Seat 2A. I walked down the jet bridge, stepped onto the plane, and immediately felt that familiar confined space. But Ranger was with me, so my breathing stayed steady. I found my seat, settled in, and Ranger lay down perfectly beneath the seat in front of me. Exactly where he was supposed to be. Exactly like he always did. Other first-class passengers boarded around me. An elderly couple across the aisle smiled at Ranger. The businessman next to me gave a polite nod. A flight attendant approached. Young guy, friendly face, name tag read Michael. Welcome aboard, sir. Can I get you anything? Just water would be great, thanks. Absolutely. And then, without me even asking, Michael returned with 2 bottles of water. One for me. One in a small bowl for Ranger. Figured he might be thirsty too, Michael said with a genuine smile. I felt myself relax. This was going to be fine. This was going to be like every other flight. The cabin filled up. Everyone settling in. Overhead bins closing. The usual pre-flight routine. Then I heard the announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm Christine, and I'll be taking over this cabin for today's flight. I didn't even look up. I was scrolling through my phone, checking one last message from my sister. You're coming to my graduation, right? You promised. I'll be there. I'd texted back that morning. I promise. This flight was about more than just getting to Boston. It was about keeping a promise. It was about being there for Emily after missing so much. I heard footsteps coming down the aisle. Heard the flight attendant checking on passengers. Heard that professional, polished voice getting closer. And then the footsteps stopped. Right next to my seat. I looked up and saw her. Christine. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back tight, expression that shifted the moment she saw Ranger. Her voice came out tight, controlled, but with an edge I recognized immediately. Sir. Is that a dog? I kept my voice friendly, calm. Yes, ma'am. Ranger is my service dog. I provided all documentation at check-in. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Service dog? The skepticism was clear. He looks like a regular pet to me. And that's when I knew. This wasn't going to be fine. This wasn't going to be easy. This was going to be something else entirely. If you want to see how this unfolds, make sure you're subscribed because what happens next will shock you. Hit that subscribe button now. Question: have you ever witnessed discrimination in public? Drop your experience in the comments below. I took a breath. Stayed calm. I'd been through versions of this before. Questions. Skepticism. People who didn't understand. He's trained for PTSD response. I explained, keeping my voice level. All his papers are. Christine cut me off. Do you know how many people try to sneak their emotional support pets into first class these days? It's become an epidemic. I reached for my bag. Pulled out the folder I always kept ready. Certification from the training facility. Letter from my VA doctor. Vaccination records. All of it official. All of it legitimate. All of it clearly marked. He's not an emotional support animal, I said, handing her the documents. He's ADA certified. Everything you need is right here. Christine took the papers, but I could tell she'd already made up her mind. She barely glanced at them. These can be bought online, she said dismissively. The elderly woman across the aisle spoke up. Miss, the dog has been perfectly quiet. He's not bothering anyone. Christine's voice got sharper. Ma'am, I'm handling this. I felt Ranger shift slightly at my feet. He could sense my stress rising. That's what he was trained for. The subtle changes in my breathing, my heart rate, my body language. Michael, the other flight attendant, approached. Christine is everything. I'm going to need to speak with the captain, Christine announced, cutting him off. I nodded. That's fine. He'll confirm everything is in order. I watched her walk toward the front of the plane, saw her whisper something to Michael. He looked confused, glanced back at me, shook his head like he disagreed with whatever she was saying. The businessman next to me leaned over. This is ridiculous. Your dog isn't bothering anyone. Thanks, I said quietly. But inside, I could feel it starting. The tightness in my chest. The slight tremor in my hands. The familiar warning signs. Ranger pressed his nose against my leg,
grounding me,
reminding me to breathe. I'd been here before. Not exactly this situation, but close enough. Let me take you back. 3 years ago. Right after I came home from Afghanistan. Right after everything changed. I was 25. Fresh out of the Marines. Honorably discharged with commendations I didn't want to think about. And I was broken in ways I didn't know how to explain. My therapist at the VA suggested a service dog. I resisted at first. I don't need a babysitter, I'd said. She looked at me with patient eyes. It's not a babysitter, Jake. It's a tool. Like medication, but better. Something that can sense what you need before you even realize you need it. I'd met Ranger a week later. Golden Retriever. 2 years old. Trained specifically for veterans with PTSD. The first time I had a panic attack in front of him, I was embarrassed. Ashamed. Here I was, a former Marine, falling apart in a training facility while a dog watched. But Ranger didn't judge. He just moved. Placed his paws on my lap. Applied pressure. Made me focus on something other than the memories flooding my brain. And it worked. My doctor explained it to me later. He's not a pet, Jake. He's medical equipment. He's as necessary for your condition as an insulin pump is for a diabetic. That's what people didn't understand. That's what Christine didn't understand. Ranger wasn't a comfort animal. He wasn't a companion. He was the difference between me functioning and me falling apart. Back on the plane, Christine returned with a tablet in her hands. Sir, I've reviewed the regulations. Then you know I'm legally allowed to have him here, I said. Legally, you need to provide 48-hour advance notice for first class. I felt confusion replace anxiety. I booked this flight 3 weeks ago. Everything was processed when I checked in. Christine showed me her tablet. There's no notation in the system. I leaned forward, pointed at her screen. Right there.
See?
Service animal approved. It's literally right there. Her face tightened. That could be a glitch. The absurdity of it hit me. We'd moved past regulations into something else. Something that had nothing to do with rules, and everything to do with her decision that I didn't belong here. Ma'am, I said, trying one more time. I really don't want any trouble. Ranger will stay under the seat. You won't even know he's here. He's perfectly trained. Christine leaned in, lowered her voice. It's not about what I know. It's about policy. And frankly, she paused, her eyes moving between me and Ranger. This is first class. We have standards. The implication hung in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The elderly man across the aisle stood up suddenly. Young man, I'm an attorney. She cannot legally remove you for having a certified service animal. This is disability discrimination. Christine's voice got louder. Sir, please sit down. This is a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the attorney continued. I'm witnessing it right now. Christine's professional mask was cracking. I am trying to ensure the comfort and safety of all passengers. Other passengers were watching now. Some had their phones out. The businessman next to me was recording. Ma'am, you might want to reconsider, he said calmly. Christine's face flushed. Put those away. You cannot record crew members. Actually, the businessman replied, we can. I sat there, feeling the situation spiral out of control, and all I could think about was Emily, my little sister, 22 years old, about to graduate from Boston University. The sister who'd sent me care packages in Afghanistan. The sister who'd written me letters when I was deployed. The sister whose high school graduation I'd missed because I was overseas. She'd called me 2 weeks ago. Jake, you're coming, right? You promised. I'd looked at the calendar, feeling the weight of that missed graduation still heavy on my shoulders. I'll be there, I promise. You better be. Dad's already being weird about it. He keeps asking if you're really coming. I told him you gave me your word. I did. I'll be there. And I meant it. This wasn't just about a flight. This was about showing up. About being the brother she deserved. About proving to myself and my family that I was still capable of keeping promises. My father's text that morning suddenly made more sense. Safe flight. Call when you land. Translation: don't let your sister down. Our relationship had been strained since I came home. He didn't know how to talk to me anymore. Didn't know how to handle the fact that his son had left as one person and come back as someone different. He'd paid for the best treatment, the best therapists, the best facilities. But money couldn't fix what was broken between us. This trip was supposed to be a step forward, a chance to show him I was managing, that I was okay. And now I was about to be removed from a plane because a flight attendant decided my service dog was inconvenient. Christine's voice cut through my thoughts. I'm going to have to ask you to deplane. The cabin went silent. What? I said. No. I'm not getting off this flight. Then I'll have security remove you. Passengers erupted. This is insane. Call a supervisor. I'm recording this. Multiple phones were out now. Christine's face got redder. I said put those away. Michael tried again. Christine, maybe we should just... I'm handling this. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Folks, we're going to have a slight delay. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. Christine ignored it completely. She pressed the call button for ground staff. I stared at her. You're actually doing this. Policy is policy, she said coldly. And that's when I heard the footsteps. Heavy. Official. Two airport security officers boarding the plane. The energy in the cabin shifted immediately. This had gone from uncomfortable to serious. Don't go anywhere. What happens next is absolutely insane. If you're not subscribed, do it now because you need to see this through to the end. Question: what would you do in Jake's situation? Let me know in the comments. 1800 hours, 26:00. The first security officer stepped into first class, looked around at all the passengers with their phones out, and I could see the hesitation on his face. What's the situation? He asked. Christine stepped forward immediately. This passenger is refusing to remove his pet from the aircraft. I stood up, keeping my voice calm despite the fact that my hands were starting to shake. He's not a pet. He's a service dog certified for PTSD response. Here's all my documentation. I handed the papers to the officer. He took them, actually read them thoroughly. I watched his eyes move across the certification, the medical letter, the training facility credentials. These look legitimate, he said finally. Christine's voice got tighter. He didn't provide proper advance notice. The officer checked his tablet, scrolling through what I assumed was the airline system. Says here the airline was notified 3 weeks ago when the ticket was purchased. I felt a small surge of relief. Finally, someone was actually checking the facts. But Christine wasn't backing down. There's no record in MY system. The second security officer, a woman with kind eyes, spoke up. Ma'am, if the airline approved it at booking. Christine cut her off. I am the senior crew member on this aircraft. I have final say on passenger safety. The first officer turned to me. Sir, just to avoid any further incident, would you be willing to take another flight? We can get you rebooked, same class, next available. And that's when it hit me. The weight of it. The unfairness of it. The fact that I'd done everything right, followed every rule, had every piece of documentation, and I was still the one being asked to leave. My hand started trembling more noticeably. I can't. The elderly attorney stood up again. He shouldn't have to. This is illegal. You're asking a disabled veteran to give up his legally protected rights because a flight attendant is having a power trip. Other passengers joined in. This is wrong. He has every right to be here. The dog hasn't done anything. Ranger stood up, sensing the spike in my anxiety. He moved immediately into position, placing his paws on my lap. applying the deep pressure therapy he'd been trained for. And Christine's voice rang out across the cabin.
See.
The dog is aggressive. The cabin exploded. He's helping him. Are you serious right now? That's literally what service dogs do. But I couldn't hear them anymore. I was spiraling. The panic attack I'd been holding off was coming whether I wanted it to or not. My breathing got shallow. My vision started to tunnel. My chest felt like someone was sitting on it. Ranger pressed harder, his weight grounding me, his warmth reminding me I wasn't in Afghanistan. I wasn't in danger. I was on a plane in Denver, and I just needed to breathe. The first officer's voice cut through, gentler now. Sir, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me? I tried. Ranger was working. I was trying. The second officer spoke quietly to Christine, but loud enough that I could still hear. Ma'am, this man is clearly having a medical episode. The dog is performing its trained task. This is exactly what service dogs are certified to do. Christine's response made several passengers gasp. Or, he's faking it to manipulate the situation. The businessman next to me stood up, phone still recording. I've had enough. I'm calling my attorney right now. He stepped into the aisle, started dialing. Christine turned to the security officers. Remove him.
Now.
The first officer looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I don't think that's... Christine's voice got louder, harder. I will have this entire flight canceled. And every single passenger here will know it's because of him and his service dog. She pointed directly at me. He's disrupting the entire cabin. Multiple passengers shouted back. He's not disrupting anything. You're the disruption. This is discrimination. But Christine had made her decision. And she had the authority to back it up. I felt it all crashing down. The promise to Emily. The chance to show my father I was managing. The simple act of getting on a plane like a normal person. Through the panic, through the fog in my brain, I managed to speak. Okay, I'll go. I started to stand, Ranger guiding me, keeping me steady. The elderly woman across the aisle was crying. This is wrong. This is so wrong. The attorney was on his phone, probably actually calling his office. Michael, the kind flight attendant, looked devastated. And then the second security officer's phone rang. She answered it, stepping slightly away. Yeah. Wait, what? Are you sure?
Who?
Okay, we'll handle it. She hung up and looked at Christine with an expression I couldn't quite read. Ma'am, we need to step outside. Christine's annoyance was clear. I'm in the middle of... Now, ma'am. Something in the officer's tone left no room for argument. They stepped out into the jetway. The door didn't close all the way, but their conversation was muffled enough that I couldn't make out the details. I sat back down, Ranger still working, still grounding me. Passengers around me were offering support. The attorney leaned over. Son, don't say another word until we know what's happening. Whatever you do, don't agree to leave voluntarily. I just nodded. The businessman sat back down next to me. I got the whole thing on video.
Clear as day.
Every word, she said. Thank you, I managed to whisper. Don't thank me. What she's doing is illegal as hell. You have a lawsuit here. But I didn't want a lawsuit. I just wanted to get to Boston. I just wanted to see my sister graduate. Michael brought me water. I'm so sorry, he said quietly. This isn't how we're trained. This isn't protocol. I don't know what's happening. I took the water with shaking hands. It's not your fault. Outside in the jetway, I could see Christine's posture changing. She'd gone from aggressive to defensive. Her shoulders hunched. Her hand went to her face. Whatever that security officer was telling her, it was serious. They came back inside. Christine's face was pale. Actually pale. The first officer spoke to me directly. Mr. Harrison, we apologize for the confusion. You're cleared to fly. Your documentation is completely in order. I stared at him. What? There's been a misunderstanding. You and your service dog are welcome on this flight. Passengers applauded. Some cheered. But I was watching Christine's face. And what I saw there wasn't just embarrassment. It was fear. Real fear. What had that phone call been about? Who had called? And why did Christine look like her entire world had just collapsed? The officers left. Christine stood frozen in the galley, staring at nothing. Michael approached her, whispered something I couldn't hear. She shook her head, whispered back, but her hands were trembling. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We'll be departing shortly. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened and all carry-on items are properly stowed. The cabin slowly returned to normal. Passengers settled back into their seats. Overhead bins were checked one more time. But nothing felt normal. The elderly attorney leaned over one more time. Son, I don't know what just happened, but someone made a phone call. Someone with enough power to shut that whole situation down immediately. I didn't call anyone, I said. Then someone was watching. The plane pushed back from the gate. Normal procedures. Normal announcements. But Christine stayed in the galley, avoiding our section entirely. Michael handled all the first-class service. We took off. Climbed to cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign turned off. And that's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Are you okay? I stared at the message. Didn't respond. Another message came through. I saw what happened. Don't worry. It's being handled. Who was this? I looked around the cabin. Several passengers had their phones out, but no one was looking at me. I turned to the businessman. Did you post that video already? He shook his head. Not yet. Wanted to make sure you're okay with it first. It's your story. Who else was recording? He gestured around the cabin. At least 5 or 6 people. Maybe more. But that didn't explain the text. That didn't explain the phone call to security. That didn't explain Christine's reaction. I looked down at Ranger, now resting peacefully at my feet. What just happened, buddy? He looked up at me with those knowing eyes, tail wagging slightly. And I realized something. This wasn't over. Whatever had just happened on that plane, whatever phone call had been made, whatever power had intervened, this was bigger than a flight attendant overstepping her authority. This was something else entirely. Stay with me. The truth about who is watching is going to blow your mind. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Question. Do you think someone was secretly looking out for Jake? Share your theory below. 26:00, 35:00. The rest of the flight was quiet. Too quiet. Christine never came back to our section. Michael brought drinks, offered snacks, apologized probably 5 times with his eyes alone. I sat there, Ranger at my feet, trying to process what had just happened while my phone buzzed with messages. Emily, landing soon? I'm so excited. Trevor. Dude, you better not miss poker night. Sam's already talking trash. And that unknown number. Everything is taken care of. Focus on your sister. I stared at that last one. Read it 3 times. Who knew about Emily? Who knew why I was flying to Boston? The attorney across the aisle caught my eye and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it myself. 45 minutes later, we began our descent into Boston. The captain announced our arrival time, the local weather, the gate information. And then something unusual. "Mr. Harrison, please remain seated after landing. We'll assist you with early deplaning." Every passenger in first class turned to look at me. I had no idea what was happening. We landed smoothly. Taxied to the gate. The seatbelt sign turned off, and passengers started standing, grabbing their bags from overhead bins. But I stayed seated, like I'd been asked. Michael approached. "Mr. Harrison, if you could just wait one moment. Someone from the airline will be here shortly." "What's going on?" I asked. "I honestly don't know," he said, and I believed him. The passengers deplaned around me. The elderly attorney stopped. "Want me to stay?" "No, it's okay," I said. "Thank you. For everything." He handed me his card. "Thompson and Associates. If you need anything, call me. What happened today was illegal, and you have options." I took the card, slipped it in my pocket. The businessman, Tom Miller, also stopped. "I've got the video saved. Haven't posted it anywhere. But if you need it, it's yours." "Thanks," I said. He handed me his card too. Civil rights law is actually my specialty. Think about what you want to do here. One by one, passengers filed off, many of them giving me supportive looks, a few squeezing my shoulder as they passed. Finally, the cabin was empty except for me, Ranger, Michael, and Christine, who was still hiding in the galley. The door opened. A woman in a sharp corporate suit stepped on board. Mid-40s, carrying a tablet, expression professional but tight. Mr. Harrison? I'm Patricia Morgan, Regional Director of Customer Experience for the airline. I stood up. I really just want to go. I understand, she interrupted gently. But first, I need to personally apologize for your experience today. Behind her, 2 more people in corporate attire entered the plane. Christine, Patricia called. Please come here. I watched Christine walk forward from the galley. Her face was pale, her hands clasped in front of her. The passengers might have left, but something told me this wasn't a private conversation. Patricia turned to address the empty cabin, though I realized she was probably speaking for the record, maybe even being recorded herself. Mr. Harrison, the footage from this flight has been reviewed by our executive team. Footage,
I said.
I thought the passenger phones. Cabin cameras, Patricia clarified. Every word, every interaction, everything that happened today was recorded by the aircraft's internal security system. I hadn't even thought about that. The cabin surveillance that airlines use for security. It had captured everything. Patricia continued. What happened today violated not only federal law, specifically the Americans with Disabilities Act, but also our company's core values and policies. She turned to Christine. Ms. Davis, effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full investigation into today's incident. Christine's voice came out strangled. You can't. I've been with this airline for 15 years. Which makes this even more disappointing, Patricia said. You've been through ADA training multiple times. You knew better. He didn't follow protocol. Christine tried. Patricia pulled out her tablet, turned it so both Christine and I could see. He followed every protocol. The airline was notified 3 weeks ago when he booked his ticket. It's in the system. You had access to this information. You chose to ignore it. She scrolled through screens showing my booking, the service animal notification, the approval, everything. I was ensuring passenger safety, Christine said desperately. By calling a certified service dog an animal? By threatening a disabled veteran with removal? By suggesting he was faking a panic attack? The cabin felt very small suddenly. Patricia's voice was firm but not unkind. Ms. Davis, we have you on camera making multiple discriminatory statements. We have you ignoring proper procedures. We have you escalating a situation that should have never been a situation in the first place. Christine tried one last defense. I didn't know he was a veteran. Patricia's response was sharp. You shouldn't have needed to know. His disability and his service dog's certification were enough. The fact that you think his military service makes a difference shows exactly the problem here. She turned to me. Mr. Harrison, on behalf of the airline, I am deeply sorry. Your future flights will be fully accommodated with no questions asked, and we'll be in touch within 48 hours regarding formal compensation for this incident. I felt uncomfortable with all the attention. I really just wanted to go home, to see my sister. I know, Patricia said softly, and I'm sorry we made that so difficult. You're free to go. Again, our sincerest apologies. She gestured toward the door. I grabbed my bag, signaled to Ranger, and started walking toward the exit. As I passed Christine, she wouldn't meet my eyes. I stepped off the plane into the jetway, and I could finally breathe. But I still had questions. So many questions. Who had made that phone call? Who had enough power to shut down an entire situation mid-flight? Who was watching? I made my way through the airport to baggage claim, Ranger walking perfectly beside me, and I was almost to the exit when someone called my name. Jake Harrison? I turned to see the businessman from the plane approaching.
Hey, he said.
I'm Tom Miller. We sat next to each other. I remember, I said. He handed me his card again, more formally this time. I work in civil rights law. What happened up there, that was more than just a flight attendant getting disciplined quickly. What do you mean? Someone powerful intervened.
Fast.
Like, made a phone call and shut everything down immediately fast. I shifted my bag. I didn't call anyone. Tom looked at me carefully. Maybe you didn't have to. We stood there in the baggage claim area, people rushing around us, and I felt the weight of his words. If you decide you want to pursue this, Tom said, legal action, formal complaints, whatever, call me. What she did was illegal. You have options. I just want to forget it, I said honestly. I understand. But sometimes these things are bigger than us. Sometimes standing up isn't just about you. It's about the next person. He shook my hand and walked away. I caught a taxi to the university. Checked my phone. Message from Emily. Where are you? Ceremony starts in an hour. On my way, I texted back. Got delayed, but I'm here. Dad's already here setting up. He's in full proud father mode, lol. I stared at that message. My father was already there. My father, who had sent me that short, distant text this morning. My father, who I hadn't had a real conversation with in months. The taxi drove through Boston, and I watched the city pass by, and I thought about everything that had happened. The flight attendant. The confrontation. The security officers. The sudden reversal. The phone call. Someone powerful had intervened. Someone was watching. And slowly, pieces started clicking together in my mind. My father, William Harrison, CEO of Harrison Aerospace, a company that designed and manufactured components for commercial aircraft, a company that had contracts with every major airline in the country, a man with connections, with power, with the ability to make phone calls that mattered. But I hadn't called him. I never called him when things went wrong. That was our unspoken rule. I handled my problems myself. So, who had called him? The taxi pulled up to Boston University. I could see the graduation setup. Families gathering. Students in caps and gowns. I paid the driver, grabbed my bag, and headed toward the crowd with Ranger. And that's when I saw her. Emily. My little sister. 22 years old in her cap and gown, scanning the crowd. She saw me, and her face lit up. Jake. She ran over, threw her arms around me. You made it. I was so worried. I promised, didn't I? She pulled back, looked at Ranger. Hey, buddy. You keeping my brother safe? Ranger's tail wagged enthusiastically. Come on, Emily said, grabbing my hand. Dad's over by the chairs. He's been asking about you every 5 minutes. My stomach tightened. We walked through the crowd, and then I saw him. William Harrison, 58 years old. Tall, composed, silver hair perfectly styled, expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked up, saw me, and something crossed his face. Relief? Pride? I couldn't quite read it. Jake. Dad. We stood there, awkward, years of unspoken words between us. He looked at Ranger. He's good for you. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
He is. I'm glad you're here, my father said. Emily's been talking about it for weeks. We sat down together. The three of us. A family that had been fractured, trying to find its way back. During the ceremony, as different speakers gave their addresses, my father leaned over. I heard about your flight.
My whole body tensed. How?
I have friends at the airline, he said carefully. I turned to look at him. Dad, I didn't want you to. You didn't call me. I know. He kept his eyes forward. But someone I know was on that flight. They called me. Who? Doesn't matter. What matters is you're okay. We sat in silence for a moment. I made a call, he admitted. Made sure they saw the footage, understood the situation properly. You got her suspended. I made sure they reviewed what happened. They made their own decision based on what she did. I processed this. My father, using his influence, not because I'd asked, but because someone had told him his son needed help. I can't fix everything, Jake. I know that.
His voice was quieter now.
I can't fix what you went through over there. I can't take away the PTSD. I can't make the panic attack stop. But I can make sure people don't treat my son like he's less than human because he needs a service dog. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in 3 years. Thanks, Dad. Emily's name was called. Emily Harrison, Bachelor of Science in Environmental Engineering. We both stood up, cheering louder than probably appropriate. My father whistled. Actually whistled. Emily walked across that stage, got her diploma, and looked right at us in the crowd. At her family. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we were going to be okay. Don't click away yet. The aftermath of this story gets even more intense. Hit subscribe to see what happens next. Question: was Jake's father right to intervene? Let me know what you think. After the ceremony, we took pictures. Hundreds of them. Emily with her diploma. Emily with friends. Emily with me and Ranger. Emily with Dad. And then, a kind stranger offered to take of all of us together. The Harrison family. Incomplete without Mom, who'd passed away 4 years ago, but together nonetheless. Dad kept his hand on my shoulder for that photo. First time he'd done that since I came home from Afghanistan. We went to dinner at a nice restaurant Emily had picked out. They had outdoor seating, so Ranger was welcome. Everything was perfect. Everything was normal. Until I checked my phone. News alert. Airline employee suspended after discrimination incident goes viral. I clicked on it. Someone had posted the video. Not Tom Miller, the attorney. Someone else from the plane. And it was everywhere. Twitter. Facebook.
TikTok.
Instagram. The clip of Christine saying, "Animals belong in cargo, not first class," had been viewed 10 million times in 3 hours. Comments were flooding in. "This is disgusting. Fire her immediately. That poor man was just trying to fly home. Service dogs are not pets." Emily saw my expression. "What's wrong?" I showed her the phone. She read for a moment, then looked at me. "Jake, is this you?" I nodded. "This happened today? On your flight here?" "Yeah." My father took the phone from me, read the article, watched the video clip. His jaw tightened. "This is worse than they told me." "Who told you?" I asked. He handed back my phone. "Richard Chun. He was in first class. He's been a family friend for 20 years. He called me mid-flight, said there was a situation. Tom Miller, the businessman, the attorney, a family friend. It was starting to make sense. He said you were handling it with incredible grace," Dad continued, "but that the flight attendant was way out of line. I made some calls, made sure the right people saw what was happening." "You used your connections," I said. "I used my voice," he corrected. "Just like you used yours. You stood up for yourself. You knew your rights. You didn't back down. I just made sure people were paying attention." Emily was scrolling through comments now. "Jake, people are really mad. Like really mad. There are hashtags. Hashtag justice for Jake. Hashtag service dogs are not pets." I felt overwhelmed. I didn't want this. I just wanted to get to your graduation. "I know," she said, "but maybe this is bigger than that now." Over the next few hours, the story exploded. News outlets picked it up. Veteran with PTSD almost removed from flight despite legal service dog. Airline faces backlash after discrimination incident. When is a service dog not a pet? One man's fight for dignity. Disability rights advocates were tweeting about it. Veterans groups were sharing it. Airline employees were commenting, some defending Christine, most condemning her. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. "Saw what happened, man. You okay? Dude, that was messed up. Stay strong, brother." And then, an email from Patricia Morgan, the regional director. "Mr. Harrison, given the public attention this incident has received, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to speak with our media team about crafting a statement. We want to handle this properly and ensure your voice is heard. Please call at your earliest convenience." I showed it to my father. "Do you want to make a statement?" he asked. I don't know what I'd even say. Emily leaned in. "Say what you told me once. About why Ranger matters. About what people don't understand." I thought about that. About all the times I'd had to explain. All the times I'd felt like I was being judged. All the times I'd wondered if it was worth the fight. "Maybe," I said. That night, back in my hotel room, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Christine. About her face when Patricia suspended her. About 15 years of service ending in a viral video. Don't get me wrong, what she did was wrong. Illegal.
Discriminatory.
But I also knew what it felt like to have your whole world fall apart. I thought about reaching out to the airline, telling them I didn't want to press charges, didn't want her fired. But then I thought about Tom Miller's words. Sometimes standing up isn't just about you. It's about the next person. How many other veterans had Christine treated this way? How many other people with service dogs had she harassed? How many had just given up, taken another flight, accepted the discrimination because fighting back was too hard? I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not a statement for the media. Just thoughts. Just truth. About what it's like to need help and be treated like you're faking it. About what it's like to follow every rule and still be seen as the problem. About what it's like to have an invisible disability in a world that only believes what it can see. I wrote for 2 hours straight. And then I sent it to Patricia Morgan with a simple note. If you want a statement, here's mine. Use it, however, helps make sure this doesn't happen to someone else. 3 days later, I was back in Denver. The story was still trending. Christine had posted a public apology video, clearly scripted by lawyers. I deeply regret my actions and the pain I caused Mr. Harrison. I let my personal frustrations override my professional responsibilities and my training. I am truly sorry. The comments were not forgiving. Too little, too late. She's only sorry she got caught. This is what happens when discrimination goes viral. But there was also something else happening. News segments were running features on service dog rights. Disability advocates were using the incident as a teaching moment. Airlines were announcing new training programs. Harrison Aerospace, my father's company, released a statement supporting ADA compliance and pledging to work with airline partners on improving accessibility. Emily called me. Dad used your situation to make a statement about disability rights. He's actually doing something good with this. I know, I said.
We talked.
You talked? Like actually talked?
Yeah.
Actual conversation. About real things. Jake, that's huge.
It was.
My father and I had spent 3 years dancing around each other, both of us not knowing how to bridge the gap. And somehow, a terrible situation on a plane had cracked that wall open. A week later, I got a package. Official settlement offer from the airline. Significant compensation. NDA attached. And a handwritten note from Patricia Morgan. Your statement led to policy changes across our entire fleet. Every flight attendant is undergoing additional ADA training. Your experience, as painful as it was, is making a real difference. Thank you for your grace and your willingness to share your story. I called Tom Miller. Did you get the settlement offer? Yeah, I said. It's generous. It's the least they could do. You considering the lawsuit? Because you'd win. Easily. I thought about it.
No.
I think this is enough.
Fair, he said.
But you know what you did, right? You changed things for the next person. The next veteran with PTSD who brings their service dog on a plane. The next person with an invisible disability who gets questioned. You made it a little bit easier for them. After I hung up, I looked at Ranger. We just wanted to get home, buddy. He wagged his tail. But Tom was right. We'd done more than just get home. We'd started a conversation. About disability. About dignity. About the difference between policy and humanity. And maybe that mattered. 2 weeks after that, I got a call from the VA hospital. Mr. Harrison? We were wondering if you'd be willing to speak at our next veteran support group. About navigating public spaces with service dogs. About knowing your rights. A lot of our guys are hesitant to get service dogs because they're worried about situations like what you went through. I agreed. The following Tuesday, I stood in front of 20 veterans, ranging from their early 20s to their 60s, and I told them my story. Not the viral video version. The whole thing. The panic attack.
The shame.
The fear. One young guy, couldn't have been more than 23, raised his hand. What if they still give me trouble? Even after all this? Then you stand your ground, I said. Politely. Firmly. You know your rights. You have your documentation. And you remember that their ignorance is not your problem. Another veteran, older, spoke up. Easy for you to say. Your dad's a billionaire. He made a phone call and fixed everything. The room went quiet. I took a breath. My dad made a phone call. That's true. But the law was already on my side. The cabin cameras were already recording. The other passengers were already supporting me. What my father did was speed up a process that was already going to happen. I paused. You don't need a billionaire father. You need to know your rights and trust that most people, when they see injustice, will stand up. Because most people did. On that plane. In those comments. In the news coverage. Most people saw what happened and said, that's not okay. I looked around the room. The system isn't perfect. But it worked. Slowly. Messily. But it worked. After the session, someone approached me from the back of the room. I looked up and nearly laughed. Mr. Thompson. The elderly attorney from the plane. Good talk, son. Mr. Thompson? What are you doing here? I volunteer here twice a month. Free legal advice for veterans. Thought I'd catch your session. We shook hands. You handled that situation with more grace than I would have, he said. I had a lot of support. You had the law on your side. But more than that, you had character. That matters more than people realize. He handed me another card. If you ever decide you want to do more with this, advocacy work, speaking engagements, whatever, call me. The world needs more people like you. I took the card, slipped it in my wallet next to Tom Miller's. Maybe someday I'd use them. But for now, I just wanted to live my life. With Ranger. With my family. With the knowledge that I could face hard things and come out the other side. We're almost at the end, but you need to see how this story finishes. Subscribe now so you don't miss the powerful conclusion. Question. Do you think Jake should have pursued legal action? Why or why not? 3 months passed. The viral video eventually faded from trending topics, replaced by the next news cycle, the next outrage, the next story. But the changes it sparked stayed. I was back in my Denver apartment on a Tuesday morning when the package arrived. Official letterhead from the airline. I opened it, expecting more legal paperwork. Instead, it was a formal settlement agreement. The compensation was significant. More than I'd expected. More than I probably deserved. But there was also something else. A handwritten note from Patricia Morgan. Mr. Harrison, your experience led to policy changes across our entire fleet. Every flight attendant in our system has undergone additional ADA training. We've updated our booking systems to flag service animal approvals more clearly. We've created a dedicated customer service line for passengers with disabilities. Your willingness to share your story, despite how painful it must have been, has genuinely made our airline better. Thank you for your grace. I read it twice. Ranger was sleeping in his usual spot by the window, sunlight warming his fur.
My phone rang.
Tom Miller. Hey, Jake. Did you get the settlement offer? Just opened it. And it's generous. So you're taking it? No lawsuit. I thought about it. Really thought about it.
Yeah.
I'm taking it. I don't want to drag this out for years. I just want to move forward. I respect that, Tom said.
But I want you to know something.
What you did mattered. I've had 3 other clients contact me in the past month. All veterans with service dogs. All facing discrimination. All of them said they saw your video and decided to fight back instead of just accepting it. That hit me harder than I expected. Really? Really? You changed the conversation, man. That's worth more than any settlement. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time just thinking. My phone buzzed. Text from Emily. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. Mom always hosted. I was thinking maybe we could do it at Dad's this year. Would you come? I stared at that message. Thanksgiving. Family. The kind of normal that had felt impossible for so long. I'll be there. I texted back. Dad will be so happy. He keeps asking if you're really coming. Tell him yes. I promise. Another text came through, this one for my father. Your mother would be proud of how you handled everything. I know I haven't said it enough, but I'm proud of you too. I had to read that one 3 times. My father. Saying he was proud. Not of my military service. Not of my accomplishments before Afghanistan. But of how I'd handled this situation. Of how I'd stood up for myself, while dealing with PTSD, of how I'd turned something terrible into something meaningful. I texted back, "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." A week later, I got another call, this time from a veterans advocacy organization. "Mr. Harrison? My name is Sarah Chen. I work with veterans for accessibility rights. We were wondering if you'd be willing to speak at our annual conference. Share your story. Help us educate people about service dog rights." "I'm not really a public speaker," I said. "You don't have to be. Just tell the truth. That's all people need to hear." I thought about the support group at the VA, about the young veteran who asked what to do if someone gave him trouble, about Tom Miller's words. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." The conference was in Chicago. 200 people. Veterans, advocates, family members, legal professionals. I stood at that podium with Ranger beside me, and I told them everything. The whole story. From the peaceful morning in Denver to the confrontation on the plane to the aftermath. I talked about what it felt like to have a panic attack in public. About what it felt like to be called a liar when you're telling the truth. About what it felt like to need help and be treated like you're asking for special treatment. When I finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. Standing ovation. Afterward, people came up to me, shared their stories, thanked me for speaking up. A woman in her 50s, tears in her eyes. "My son has PTSD. He's been too afraid to get a service dog because he doesn't want to deal with people questioning him. After hearing you, I think he might reconsider." A young Marine, couldn't have been more than 25. "I've been kicked out of 3 restaurants because they said my service dog was disruptive." He wasn't. He was just existing. But I didn't know how to fight back. Now I do. An older veteran, Vietnam era. Thank you for putting words to what so many of us have felt. I flew home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Not the kind of purpose I'd had in the Marines. Not the kind that came from following orders or completing missions, but the kind that came from using my experience, even the painful parts, to help other people. Thanksgiving came. I drove to my father's house in Boulder, Ranger in the passenger seat, and I felt nervous in a way I hadn't expected. This was the first holiday we'd spent together as a family since Mom died. The first time in years we'd all be in the same room without tension hanging over everything. Emily met me at the door. "You actually came. I promised, didn't I?" Dad was in the kitchen, actually cooking. William Harrison,
CL.
billionaire, wearing an apron and basting a turkey.
Jake. Good to see you.
"You too, Dad." We hugged. Awkward at first, then genuine. Dinner was good. Really good. We talked about Emily's new job at an environmental consulting firm. About Dad's business. About Ranger's latest antics. And then, over dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "I want to say something." Emily and I looked at each other. I haven't been the father I should have been, especially these last few years.
I didn't know how to help you, Jake.
I didn't know what to say or do, so I just kept my distance. He looked down at his plate. "But watching how you handled that situation on the plane, how you stood up for yourself with dignity, how you turned something awful into something that helped other people, that showed me the man you've become. And I'm proud. So incredibly proud." Emily was crying. I might have been too. "Thanks, Dad." "I know I can't fix what you went through," he continued. "I can't take away the PTSD or the panic attacks or the hard days. But I can be here. I can listen. I can be your father instead of just someone who writes checks." "I'd like that," I said. We spent the rest of the evening talking. Really talking.
About Mom.
About Afghanistan. About the future. It wasn't perfect. Years of distance don't disappear in one conversation. But it was a start. And sometimes, a start is enough. Stay with me, we're almost at the end. Make sure you're subscribed because the final chapter of this story will give you hope. Question: have you ever reconnected with family after a difficult time? Share your story. 6 months after the incident on the plane, I was back in Denver, living my life. Different now. Better in some ways. I'd started volunteering regularly at the VA, running monthly workshops on service dog rights and disability advocacy. I'd spoken at 3 more conferences. I'd helped 4 veterans navigate discrimination situations with their service dogs. And I'd rebuilt my relationship with my father. We talked on the phone once a week now. Real conversations. About work, about life, about nothing and everything. On a random Tuesday morning, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find a delivery person with a large envelope. Inside was a letter from the airline, final paperwork for the settlement, and one more handwritten note from Patricia Morgan. Mr. Harrison, I wanted to give you a final update. Since your incident, we've had 0 reported cases of service dog discrimination on our flights.
0.
Your story changed our culture. Thank you for being willing to stand up, even when it was hard, even when you just wanted to get home. I showed the letter to Ranger. We did something, buddy. His tail wagged. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this Jake Harrison? Yes. My name is Christine Davis. I froze. The flight attendant. The woman who'd tried to remove me from the plane. The woman whose career had been destroyed by viral video. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, she said quickly. And I understand if you hang up. But I wanted to call you personally. Not through lawyers. Not through the airline. Just person to person. I didn't hang up. What happened on that flight was wrong. I was wrong. And I can make excuses about stress or bad training or personal issues, but none of that matters. I treated you terribly. I discriminated against you. I tried to remove you from a flight you had every right to be on.
She paused.
I lost my job. I deserved to lose my job. But more than that, I had to confront the fact that I'd become someone who saw people as problems instead of people. And that's on me.
I didn't know what to say.
I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, she continued, working on my biases, learning about disability rights, volunteering with veterans organizations, trying to become someone better than who I was on that plane. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I owed you an apology. A real one. Not the scripted version my lawyers wrote. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. I'm truly sorry for what I put you through. We sat in silence for a moment. Thank you, I said finally, for calling,
for apologizing,
for doing the work. It doesn't fix what I did.
No.
But it's something. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. I thought about grace, about forgiveness, about the fact that people can change if they're willing to do the work. Christine Davis had a long way to go.
But she was trying.
And maybe that was enough. That weekend, I had plans to fly to Seattle for another veterans conference. Different airline this time. But still, a flight. I arrived at Denver International Airport with Ranger, went through the now familiar routine. Check-in, smooth. Security, professional. Gate, no issues. I boarded the plane, found my seat, and settled in. The flight attendant approached. Welcome aboard. Oh, what a beautiful service dog. Thank you. His name is Ranger. We're honored to have you both. Let me know if you need anything at all. She brought water, without being asked. For both of us. Everything was normal. Everything was easy. The way it should be. The plane took off, and I looked out the window at Denver disappearing below us. My phone buzzed. Text from Emily. Safe flight. Dad wants to know if you're coming for Christmas. I smiled and texted back. Tell him yes. Text from Dad. Your mother always made the best cookies. Emily and I are going to attempt her recipe. No promises. I laughed out loud. Text from Tom Miller. Saw you're speaking in Seattle. Knock, am dead. Text from Mr. Thompson. Proud of you, son. Keep fighting the good fight. I looked down at Ranger, peacefully resting at my feet. You know what, buddy? We're okay. We're actually okay. He looked up at me with those knowing eyes. The flight was smooth. No turbulence. No problems. No drama. Just a man and his service dog flying to Seattle. Normal. Peaceful. Easy. The way it always should have been. When we landed, I had a message from a young Marine I'd met at the VA. Hey Jake, I got my service dog last week. Her name is Hope. Taking my first flight with her next month. Nervous, but remembering what you said. Know my rights. Stand my ground with grace. Thanks for showing us the way. I read that message 3 times. Thanks for showing us the way. I hadn't set out to be an advocate. I just wanted to get to my sister's graduation. But sometimes life takes your worst moments and turns them into something meaningful. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone who comes after you. Sometimes the hard things we go through become the very things that help other people survive their own hard things. I walked out of the Seattle airport with Ranger beside me, ready for the conference, ready to share my story one more time. Not as a victim, not as someone broken, but as someone who'd faced discrimination and came out the other side stronger. As someone who'd turned pain into purpose. As someone who'd learned that grace and strength aren't opposites. They're partners. My phone buzzed one more time. Text from Dad. Safe landing?
Yeah, Dad.
I'm good.
Good.
Love you, son. I stared at those words. 3 words he hadn't said in years. Love you too, Dad. I slipped my phone in my pocket, looked at Ranger, and smiled. Come on, buddy. We've got work to do. Because the fight for dignity, for accessibility, for the simple right to exist in public spaces without harassment, that fight doesn't end with one viral video or one settlement or one policy change. It continues. Every day. In every airport. On every flight. In every public space where someone with a disability has to prove they deserve to be there. But now, because of one terrible flight and one decision to stand my ground with grace, the fight is a little bit easier. The conversation is a little bit louder. The awareness is a little bit higher. And the next veteran with PTSD who boards a plane with their service dog will have a slightly better chance of being treated with the dignity they've always deserved. That's not nothing. That's everything. I walked toward the conference center, Ranger at my side, ready to tell my story one more time. Ready to remind people that service dogs aren't pets. That invisible disabilities are still disabilities. That following the rules doesn't always protect you from discrimination. But that standing up matters. Fighting back matters. Using your voice matters. Even when all you wanted was to get home. Especially then. The conference hall was full. Hundreds of faces. Veterans, advocates, families, legal professionals. I took the stage, looked out at the crowd, and began. My name is Jake Harrison. And 6 months ago, a flight attendant tried to remove me from a plane because she didn't believe my service dog was legitimate. And I told him everything. Because some stories need to be told. Some voices need to be heard. Some fights need to be fought. Not for revenge. Not for fame. But for the simple, powerful truth that everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to fly home without being called an animal. Service dogs are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Know your rights. Stand your ground with grace. And remember, not all wounds are visible, but all wounds deserve healing. And all people deserve humanity. Thank you for staying with Jake's story all the way to the end. If this moved you, subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Final question. What's the biggest lesson you're taking away from Jake's story? I want to hear from you in the comments below. Your voice matters just as much as Jake's did.